Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of December 12th through the 18th. And this week's kind of a mellower week. We're definitely still deep in the throes of Mars retrogrades. I like to remind you guys of that every week right now. We're right kind of in the almost in the midpoint of that. Well, actually, we're beyond the midpoint now. Actually, this week we moved beyond the midpoint, so we still have another month of that to go. So remember, if your actions are being frustrated, not working the way they normally do, that is what is to be expected. It's like, but we still have to keep moving forward and just know that eventually the energy will start to straighten out. But I know that, it brings a lot of just frustrated actions and motivations. So I want to remind you guys of that every week. All right, now remember, if you are not familiar with astrological terms, do not get lost on the astrological terms, okay? Just listen to the interpretations in between that I'm talking about, and that is the important thing to know, what that energy is this week, so that you are aware of it and can work with it as best you can. And for those of you who do know some astrology, which I know is most of you, I am going to mention what the astrological terms are, and you guys can have a little understanding of the why I came up with this stuff. Remember, the blog is free too. It's on YouTube every week, so I'd love for you guys to be able to pass the link on to somebody else, and I'll give some more details at the end here. So this week, like I said, a pretty mellow week, really. I would say that, there's three energies to talk about. In the beginning of the week, the sun has a couple interesting aspects, and then midweek going into the weekend, Mercury has an interesting journey, which I think is really going to be the main energy of the week. It starts with a couple challenging aspects, but then ends with a couple harmonious type aspects. So it seems like, there's going to be like an unfolding story, as aspects usually are, that Mercury is going to tell us this week, and that we can maybe take some advantage of. And then there's some interesting stuff going on with Ceres on the weekend, including it changing signs into Libra. So those are the three things I'm really feeling are the main things in the astrological weather this week. And so it starts with the sun on Monday and Wednesday, two very different aspects. So like, we're going to feel a big switch in our energy, in our life energy, in our life force energy from Monday to Wednesday. So Monday, there's a sun sextile Saturn, and this is real good practical energy to use. It's a time when we can really is best used to work on projects that we have, or just your job, your career, whatever that is. There's a real nice focus, concentration of energy, and the correct attitude in taking projects on, knowing that there's a lot of practical steps that need to be taken in order to get the results that you want in the real world. So it's a good day to work. It really is. It's just, and one of the big things too, when the sun and Saturn get together in a positive aspect like this, it's an opportunity also to get advice or the information you need from others that have more of it than you. So in other words, like people who are more experienced than you, older people who may be wiser about certain things, authorities that have some of the information you need, especially in relation to anything practical going on with your business or something like that. So, it's a good day to work with people like that. Professional kind of help is a good way to say that. But it's a day where our attitude is very much focused on the real world and is realistic about it. So we know that we have to put in order to get out, and that many times what we're doing on a given day don't actually show the ultimate award yet, but they do show that we've taken some practical steps in the right direction. So that's a real good energy from Monday today, and spills a little bit into Tuesday for sure. But then the sun's energy is going to shift as it goes from that into Wednesday, where it's going to pick up a square to Neptune, which is really almost the opposite kind of energy that the sun and Saturn have. When the sun and Neptune get together, the energy of our life becomes diffused. Physically, we can feel tired, worn out, or just worn down by the circumstances of reality and all the issues that are going on. So it's almost like, Wednesday would be a good day to check out if you can. Like, if you don't have to do things in the real world and you can just kind of stay in a quieter space. There's a sensitivity that goes on, and also there's also then on the psychological level too, it's discouraging. It's a good word to feel. Can feel like a lot of our ideals are not living up to reality, so it's kind of a little bit disheartening. That kind of energy kind of takes the wind out of your sails, so it kind of makes us sensitive to the real world. And then the problem with that, well, there's a couple problems with that. One of them is that we have a tendency to then get kind of slippery or deceptive or secretive about real world stuff, so we can really fall into places, or other people can fall into places where we're just being misled, or we're misleading, and we're just trying to avoid reality with others somehow, right? And or the other thing that can happen is we can start to fall into patterns of victimhood or martyrdom or addictions, and also this is a time when our life force energy can be lower, so our immune systems can, because of that attitude, can be lower too, and can make us susceptible to illness and allergies and things like that. So basically what is happening on this level, and more than anything, is we're finding out a lot of our ideals are not jiving well with reality, and so it can diffuse our life force energy in many different ways. And really, like I said, the best way to deal with this energy is to just chill out. If you can, take a day off. Try to avoid a lot of stimulation and new stuff, and not making any serious decisions for sure, all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the sun's journey, and for early in the week. And then Wednesday through Saturday, Mercury has a very interesting journey, and I think this is really the best energy to work with this week, and it does tie in with Mars retrograde somewhat, but Mercury is going to make 4 aspects between Wednesday and Saturday. The first 2 are tougher ones, challenging ones, and then the next 2 are very harmonious ones. And at the same time, the sun is going to be actually in a harmonious aspect. It's trining Eris. So Mercury is going to start on Wednesday when it squares Chiron. And then on Thursday, it's going to quincunx Mars retrograde. So there's Mars coming in. And then by Friday, it's going to trine the North Node. And by Saturday, trine Uranus. Remember, the North Node and Uranus are together right now in Taurus. They're conjunct. So when one's hitting, the other one's getting hit too. And at the same time on Friday, the sun is trining Eris. So what does it all mean? All this stuff happening together. I think what's going to start is the Mercury and Chiron, the Mercury square Chiron and the Mercury quincunx, the Mars retrograde. The mind is going to be able to see places where we've been getting hurt. And where our own actions and ideas and beliefs are hurting us, where we can see that the problem may be that some of our beliefs behind our actions are off. And the interesting thing about it, the Mars retrograde quincunxing to Mercury shows that we might have had the sneaking suspicion that they were not completely on all along. Like there may have been something tugging at us, and that like brings a kind of like, you know, an edgy, kind of irritating energy at times. And at times you may not, you know, you can get very defensive in defending ideas that you may yourself not be feeling like they're like quite right on, you know. So the mind is seeing right now that, oh, you know, like that's what's kind of messing me up, you know. And the thing is that the mind is seeing how it's misled itself in a certain kind of way. So that's like really good learning, because it's like almost like a self-analysis. That's what that Chiron can really be beneficial with, so that we can bring healing in. But what it's showing is, you know, we have to make some adjustments to our actions, like, and show that, you know, and face the reality that maybe some of the beliefs we had were not helping us, that were leading us to do things that were kind of messing ourselves up, you know, and hurting ourselves. So it's a real interesting time. And like I said, you know, if you're not conscious of this energy, it can feel very irritating. Like everything can kind of feel off, you know, and it will be hard to adjust and heal or learn from it. But that's really what's got to happen here, is that, you know, you can see these beliefs that like maybe have been driving a lot of your motivations and energies, and even though you had a suspicion they may have been off a little bit, now they've been kind of exposed. Like the mind can see it, you know, and it's your own mind. So like there's no arguing with that, right? So what does that do? If we can open to that and make these adjustments, then the Sun trine Eris will rush into our life energy and help us make changes, like help us to harmoniously allow in changes. And what happens then? The North Node and Mercury in their trine means that we all of a sudden are getting new connections, new associations, new ideas that are coming to us, probably from other people. When it's the North Node, a lot of times what may happen is all of a sudden we start processing, that's the Mercury part, and communicating, Mercury part, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, other people who have been sharing, you know, similar ideas or thoughts, you know, start giving us more information. And so we get these very stimulating connections that are on the intellectual contact level, and then therefore can create new connections. And what does that do? Mercury trine Uranus next on Saturday. It stimulates our mind. It brings in new information that we need. And now all those problems that the Mercury Chiron and Mercury Mars identified a few days before that, we can find new solutions to. We can find new solutions to old problems under the Mercury trine Uranus, and we get a lot of information, we take it in, and it really excites our minds. It's stimulating because it's creative intellectual energy, and we can see it's going to open up new roads and new places to go to, new ideas to share. It's a great time to use like science and human mind studies, technology, things like that, to help in resolving a lot of those problems. So, you know, just knowing too, like, once again, that Mercury trine to Uranus in the North Node really sharpens the mind too. So what it sees under the Mercury Chiron, it's like, oh, you know, it's very acute, and then it can really get into some innovative new solutions that it perceives. So a very interesting journey for Mercury during Wednesday through Saturday, that we can, you know, I think, really choose to respond to well, and knowing that it's all in our own mind, it's like not like someone else trying to convince us of something, So, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was Ceres a little bit on the weekend. So there's a couple of interesting things going on with the main asteroid Ceres. And if you'll remember, Ceres is all about like nurturing, the mothering principle, making sure that we have what we need. And right now, both Jupiter and Ceres are in the 29th degree of the signs they're in. So on Saturday, they're going to be exactly opposite one another. Jupiter opposite Ceres in the critical 29th degree. Jupiter in Pisces and Ceres in Virgo. So this is going to be a big test to know when to say no, actually. To know when others are in need, that there's a limit to how much you can give without depleting your own resources. And I'm not just talking about physical resources too. I'm talking about like your emotional resources, your psychological resources. There's a time, this aspect is trying to teach us when enough, when we're giving enough, and we need to take care of ourselves too. So like, the danger of this aspect is to think that we are everyone's parent around us, and that we know what's best for everybody, and kind of falling into like almost like an over parenting mode. The other thing about Ceres too, since it does have a lot to do with resource, which one of the main resources for humans, since this is what we convert into energy to live, is food. And so Ceres with Jupiter can bring up like food, comfort food type issues is a good way to say it, so that's something to look for too on the weekend. But interestingly enough, next day, Ceres moves faster than Jupiter. It's going to move into Libra for a while. So this is going to be a period of time when we're going to look for nurturing, look for resource through cooperation with others, through the cooperative urge, and that we can create different types of partnerships with different people or groups to help get the nurturing and resources that we need. The biggest issue with Jupiter going into Ceres is to like overdoing it again. It's that almost that same thing the opposition is saying, know when to say no, and that you need to be taken care of too, and that you're getting the support that you need. All right, well, that's it for this week. Like I said, a more chill week. We are in the throes of that Mars retrograde. Now, next week, we'll definitely have a new moon happening in Sag. And so that'll be interesting. And then we're also going to have the solstice next week. So the beginning of a new year or quarter, at least, of what's happening in the world and the energy shifting around. So that'll be interesting stuff to look at next week. All right. Matt Lawton is my name. The Astrological Winds channel is the name of this blog. It is available for free on YouTube every week. Put this work in for, I'd love to share it with you guys. And what I'd like you to do now is pass the link on to somebody else. If you'd like to give a donation, I won't say no to that either. But what's more important is to help my blog continue to grow organically, which you guys are doing a good job at. Sometimes we get a little static, and I just want to remind you all, there's probably someone else out there that might be interested, and if they're not, that's fine, but please pass it on. If you are if you have a YouTube account, become a follower of the channel. It's Astrological Winds channel. Please become a follower, and turn your notifications on, so that you know when the blog is posted. The blog is still just mainly me talking to the camera. So not necessary to see the video, and therefore available on many podcasts. And the podcasts are starting to grow, like they're telling me like, the podcast numbers are funny, but they're telling me, I'm starting to get to a point where like the podcast is being heard by more than 50% of the other podcasts out there. So, look it up on your favorite podcast, Astrological Winds channel. It's distributed by Buzzsprout, and like I think about 20 different ones pick it up, including Spotify and Apple iPodcasts and things like that. So just look it up. And, I know podcasts can be definitely easier to just listen to while you're doing something else. And like I said, there's no need to actually look at the blog right now. Just usually me on the camera. Also, if you have an Instagram account, I post the link on that, and Astrological Winds channel is available on Instagram. So become a follower. Just look it up, become a follower. And sometimes I do post other stuff during the week, usually just comments, not video or audio. So something you can read in a few seconds about, a certain day or days during the week that I feel are extra sensitive in one way or another. And sometimes not, but sometimes there's weeks where I'll put 3 or 4 things up. So, you might be missing out on some extra little tidbits there. And then also Facebook is the other place I post the link. I use my Facebook account mainly for just astrology, so don't expect me to interact socially much otherwise, but it is a private account. Matthew Lawton, you have to look me up. It's Matthew, Matthew, then Lawton, Lauten, and then ask for a friend request. All right, and like I said, it is free, so do pass it on. If you'd like to give a donation, Venmo is the best way, but I have like other ways too. But if my Venmo handle is at Matthew-Lawton, Lauten, and best way to support me is I am a professional astrologer. I've been doing charts for 20 years plus now. If you've never gotten your natal chart, that is your birth chart reading done, I highly recommend that, because you're to me, you're walking around somewhat blind to the energy in your life, and would you rather work with it than be blind to it? Also, predictive is very important too. I think once a year, right around your birthday, get a predictive reading for the next year. It's your personal weather report, and once again, if not, you're blind to the energy that's personally affecting your chart that year, and it's always can be relieving to know, when energy is shifting and things like that. I also do relationship charts and work for people who are together, interested in that. Children's charts and work, if you have a youngster interested in elections, if you looking for the best timing for something like starting a business or a wedding or something, we can hone in on that. Horary, if you have a burning emotional question or issue you haven't been able to get an answer to, sometimes we can find it in a chart. Fixed star readings for deeper soul purpose. Astrocartography and relocation for people who are thinking about moving. So all kinds of different readings. Also have some beginners classes available. They're up on Dropbox. You pay me and I let you get into that. There's 5 right now. They're $25 a piece, or $20 for students. If you want all 5 at the same time, you can take 5 off and get all 5 for $100. Also available for your groups, any kind of astrology that you need, lecture, question and answer sessions, mini readings, entertainment, that kind of thing, all that stuff. Best way to get me is on my email, matthuE823 at gmail.com. That's matthuE823 at gmail.com. All right, well, thanks once again, everybody. Keep passing it on. We'll look at that new moon next week and probably do another blog for that solstice chart too. For those into mundane, which is political and social outlook for the next 3 months to a year. We'll look at that. Probably in a separate blog, but yeah, look out for both of them next week. And like I said, this week, Mercury, our mind should be able to see where some of our own mixed up beliefs have been, making us act in ways that have not been the best for us. And now there's going to be new information available to help us change those things. So that's what we really want to try to focus on this week. All right, I'll see y'all next week.